Okay, what do you know? A topic that crosses off the box for two teams that I like to talk about here in the channel. Let's talk about a new player on the Detroit Red Wings, a guy who made himself known in Philadelphia. He was a part of the Flyers organization, he was a prospect there, he developed there, and eventually debuted as a very strong offensive defenseman, but who eventually found himself on a bunch of other teams before signing with the Red Wings this summer as a brand new free agent. Let's talk today about Ghost Bear himself, Shayne Gostisbehere. A guy whom, if you've been paying attention to all the videos we've made over the past few years, spanning back to 2016, you probably already know that I am unreasonably in love with the way he plays the game. His profile, his story, the results he got on paper, just the battle for the Calder in 2015-16 between him, Artemi Panarin, and Connor McDavid, that set Ghost Bear, up on the path of my personal favorites list all the way back in 2016. And now he's a Red Wing, signing on with them till the end of 2023-2024, $4.125 million a year, so a one-year contract with a modified no-trade. Shayne Gostisbehere, as we have talked about in prior videos, was a super stud on the blue line. Just an absolute offensive dynamo who had spent some time in the NCAA, he was bouncing around in the AHL, eventually was a rookie in 2015-16, getting 46 points in 64 games played, and the rest was history. He played with the Flyers maxing out at 65 points in a 78-game year, but then declined a little bit, made his way over to the Arizona Coyotes where he bounced back, 51 points in 82 games played in 21-22, and then in this most recent season, after playing with the Coyotes again, he got traded over to Carolina, had 10 points in 23 games over there, and became a free agent afterwards. Gostisbehere has ever since signed on with the Red Wings, and when it comes to the way this team is going to be able to man their power plays, with guys like Jeff Petrie, Gostisbehere, Seider all there are a lot of options the Wings will have when it comes to who plays the point on their man advantage units. This is why we go over onto a new article that was published by the Detroit Free Press talking about Shayne Gostisbehere, his entire perspective on becoming a Red Wing, and wherein he also talks about his time with the Flyers. Now, the problem here is, Detroit Free Press is a paid-for service, so you have to go out there and get a subscription if you want to read this particular piece. I will leave a link in the description if you want to read this yourself, and if you happen to have one of their subscriptions. But in order to actually get these quotes and see what Gostisbehere has to say about becoming a Red Wing and being a former Flyer, there is indeed another article published on Philly Hockey Now, which has the quotes that we're looking for. Now, of course, because this is Philly Hockey Now, you could understand that the writer's perspective, Chuck Boseman, is coming from the Philadelphia Flyers POV. He's writing about everything as it pertains to Philly, which will be pretty nice, I think, for a lot of Philly fans to hear about, but here's the second piece on Philly Hockey Now. Ghost speaks out on his time with the Flyers and his future with the Red Wings. Let's go into the body of this piece right here. I had a few good years in Philly, and then I think injuries really caught up with me, Gostisbehere told the Detroit Free Press this week. It's just a blend of falling out of favor there. The Red Wings are offering a pretty good opportunity for Gostisbehere, who had signed a one-year, $4.1 million AAV. Power play in Detroit was 17th in the NHL last season, so there is room for improvement. Steve Yzerman knew my strengths on the power play, and that would be a big part of me going there, Gostisbehere said. The biggest thing for me on a one-year deal is I need to have the right opportunity to show what I can do. I thought it was a great fit. The Red Wings are a young, hungry team with a lot of skill, and that fits my game perfectly in the sense that I like to play offensively, and when you're surrounded by skill, it makes it work. I'm definitely excited for the opportunity. And so kicking off the entire series of quotes here, Gostisbehere talks about how he kind of fell out of favor with the Philadelphia Flyers, mostly because injuries caught up with him. And that's not something I'm going to necessarily disagree with, nor do I think a lot of Flyers fans would disagree with either. He had a bunch of points in his first few years in Philly, but around 2019, 2020, this is when he stopped really being himself. He started producing a lot less, he played a lot fewer games too. And so when it comes to what the Flyers inevitably did here when they traded Gostisbehere away, they paid the Arizona Coyotes a bunch of draft capital to get Gostisbehere off of their hands. You can understand why that decision was made in the way that it was, But of course, it does not really feel good when you acknowledge that Shayne Gostisbehere, immediately after getting sent over to his new team, put up a 50-point year and immediately became a valued defenseman offensively in the NHL, reputation-wise, once again. That's why he was traded to Carolina at this previous year's trade deadline period. So for Gostisbehere to openly and honestly bring up to the media that, yeah, I kind of fell out of favor there. I was kind of banged up a little bit, and sure, I had a few good years, but it still wasn't really gonna last all too long. It's good that he's able to say that and not really hold any ill will towards the Flyers and their situation, because of course I think a lot of Flyers fans remember and admire what it was that Gostisbehere was able to do. He was all the rage back in 2016. He was a rookie at that point. However, when it comes to the future, it is good to hear that Steve Yzerman is directly saying, yeah, he knows the strengths that Gostisbehere has. Therefore, he's going to give Gostisbehere that opportunity to use those strengths. Now, I know Stevie Y and Derek Lalonde, they're not the same person, and it's fair to assume that on all NHL teams, it's not always like the coach and the GM has exactly the same type of vision. But just having that known, hey, this guy's a power play guy. That's why we traded for him. So put him on the power play. There is reason to believe that this will set up Gostisbehere for a pretty good stage for 23-24. He also talks about how he's grateful for the opportunity he got with the Arizona Coyotes. I got to showcase that I could still play in this league and resurrect my career, give myself another chance in showing people that I'm still a good player. It springboarded me into the opportunity with Carolina. It's nice to have 2 good years in a row. Offensive defensemen get a lot of flack for their defensive side. Any coach I've gone to for the first time, they say, I'm surprised that your defensive game is pretty good. And I'm like, yeah, it's because I take pride in it. I try to do the best that I can. I know my better abilities are on the offensive side, but I am a defenseman. I've got to play defense first. For me, I try to prove that I'm a two-way player. Now, I'm not going to go out there and necessarily say I think that everybody's been underrating Gostisbehere's defensive game, but defense is indeed defense. You kind of have to learn how to defend. And on paper, a -23, despite having a 50-point year, does not look great, but then you recognize, hey, this guy was playing on the Arizona Coyotes. Having a few other seasons with the Flyers where he was -20, sure, that doesn't look great, but then you realize, yeah, he's playing on a bad Philadelphia Flyers team. And so I think this also plays into the perceptions of how people view the league, where it's like, oh yeah, that guy had a really bad plus-minus, he must be bad defensively. But Gostisbehere is saying, yeah, a lot of coaches that I play for, they are pretty surprised that I'm actually not bad on defense. He also says that he's blessed to have a pretty hard shot. He tries to get it off as quick as he can. My grandpa will text me after every game. Only 2 shots? What's going on? He wants me to shoot every puck that I see. Obviously, the more that you shoot, the more goals that are going to go in. So, when it comes to Shayne Gostisbehere, I, for one, really enjoyed reading this piece, which there is a little bit more included in the article if you click the link in the description, not just to the Detroit Free Press interview, but to the Philly Hockey Now piece wherein the quotes are there. But for me, as a Red Wings fan, the Red Wings are my 3rd favorite team. I love just kind of seeing their growth and development. It's awesome to see Shayne Gostisbehere come into a system where it appears he is going to be valued, and where his strengths are going to be utilized to the best of their abilities. This is kind of what the Wings needed. They need a little bit of boost on their power play. Not that Moritz Seider isn't good, but having extra options that could actually facilitate results as well, that flexibility is what Stevie Y is striving for here. And when it comes to Gostisbehere himself saying for Philadelphia fans, yeah, it just kind of didn't work out. I was banged up. I fell out of favor with that team. I think most of us can appreciate the honesty, right? And I guess you could say that some Flyers fans are a bit salty that they paid draft picks away to Arizona to get rid of Gostisbehere in the first place, and now he's good again. But at the end of the day, you know, sometimes it takes a while to rehab from injuries and come back in the proper way. And for Shayne Gostisbehere, that opportunity to really rebound did not seem like it was going to be there for the Philadelphia Flyers in any respect. So 3 years down the line-ish, he's back and ready to go. He is a quality NHL offensive defenseman, and we could not have said the same thing about him back when he was recovering and coming back to the Philadelphia Flyers after a whole bunch of years just kind of up and down, going back to the AHL for conditioning stints, etc., after being the stud that he was at the middle part of the 2010s. So, thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about Shayne Gostisbehere speaking out about his time on the Philadelphia Flyers, as well as what's next with the Wings? I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.